Hi, and welcome to Cardcast, where each week we discuss topics of interest with Lamar University Cardinals. I'm Shelley Vitanza, the Director of Public Affairs at Lamar University, and today we're going to inspire you to write. Jennifer Ravey, the Director of the Writing Center at Lamar University, is here, and she works with students to acknowledge their learning experience while teaching them methods to communicate more clearly and more professionally. Jennifer has taught in the Department of English and Modern Languages for nearly 15 years and also serves as managing editor of the Review of Texas Books, an online book review publication at Lamar University. She's an avid reader whose interests span from cozy mysteries to Pacific War nonfiction, and she has reviewed books for a number of online publications and been chosen as a judge for several book prizes, including the Audio Publishers Association Audio Awards and Lamar University's Center for History and Culture Annual Summerly Book Prize. Alongside two colleagues, she was awarded the Presidential Fellowship in Teaching Innovation in 2014, and locally she's been named one of Beaumont's 40 Under 40 in 2016. Jennifer lives in a 114-year-old house in the Oaks Historic District of Beaumont with her husband and pets. Welcome, Jennifer. So glad you're here.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to talk about, I want to get your summer reading list for sure. So I want to just put that out there so you can be thinking about it while we're talking. But, I want to talk about the LU Writing Center. I mean, it's kind of a unique place, right? Talk about its purpose and what you do there.
Okay. So the Writing Center is a completely free student support service on campus. And we work with undergraduate and graduate writers to help equip them to become more confident, skilled writers. And so obviously right now with the pandemic and the way that we've shifted to online learning, we have been solely online for the spring semester. We have offered online sessions for years through Blackboard Collaborate Ultra. And so we really had no disruption. And undergraduate or graduate students can meet with our writing consultants and ask them all sorts of questions before they even get started writing. So it's a really good resource. A lot of people sit and stare at a blank screen, and that's one of the hardest things for them is to actually get started writing. And so we encourage students to come early and come often. Come before you started writing, come to make sure that you're on the right track once you do begin writing. And then, of course, we can help you proofread your essays as well. And we work with student writers all across campus. So we, of course, help with a lot of English courses, but we also see a lot of students from psychology, nursing, you name it. We've seen students come in for that class. So it's a great way for students to also get connected to their peers. And we find that a lot of our consultants see their regulars. We'll call them, that's our regular client. And we see them, once a week, twice a week, and they come in every single week for the semester. So it really is a neat place, and I encourage our students to visit us for sure.
Well, it seems like a no-brainer if you've got this big paper that you've got due, or just any, right? I mean, you just come in and work with your team. Now, talk to me about how many students kind of access the Writing Center and how many people you have on staff there.
Okay. So typically in any given academic year, we see roughly 3,500 students. And so we see a number of students each semester. And right now I have 16 writing consultants who work in the Writing Center. Some of them are English majors. We've had journalism majors, nursing majors, students from deaf studies. So we try to recruit our consultants from all across campus because we want students and faculty to feel confident that when their students come into the Writing Center, they're truly getting a holistic, generalized approach to writing and not just this is how we write an English style essay. And so that's one of the things that I've really focused on since I've been Writing Center director is to really diversify our consulting staff. We also have a consultant who is deaf and who is fluent in ASL and works with mostly deaf or hard of hearing students. And so we've built really good relationships with those students on campus as well. And it's neat because Chapman Sieben is his name, and he actually teaches the rest of us enough ASL to feel more confident in communicating with students who are deaf and hard of hearing. So yeah, it's a really neat place to work. And typically, our consultants will work for us as until they graduate. And so that's really rewarding for me because I get to witness their journey and before we send them off into the world and to do other great things. So I absolutely love the interaction that we get with students at Lamar.
Perfect. Now, what is the biggest challenge? You said, facing that white screen on the computer is, I would say, if you can get, if you can get that first sentence down, it starts to work. But what would you say is the biggest challenge, that students and maybe any writer faces?
I would say distraction. I think, especially because so many of us are writing on computers where we have access to literally more information than anyone on earth has ever had. It's so easy for us to maybe we're researching and we go down a rabbit hole, or we just have other things, other social media that draws our attention, and so it can be really easy to not be able to focus on a given task. And so there are actually a lot of applications that you can use that will block certain sites for a period of time that you set. And so I always, if students are having trouble concentrating or sitting down and working on an assignment, I'll tell them block those things from your computer. It's so helpful to be able to do that. I do it when I'm grading papers, to be honest, because my house is never cleaner than when I have to grade papers. And so I will set some of those apps on my own computer so that I'm not tempted. And I'm going to sit here and I'm going to grade papers for 30 minutes. Or I'm going to sit here and I'm going to write for 30 minutes. And it really does help to reduce those distractions. We have so much that competes for our time. And I certainly understand that, but there is no substitute for sitting down and doing the work.
We've just had a question come in from one of our viewers. So, if you've got a student who really wants to improve his or her writing skills, what guidance do you provide them? What kind of skills can they work on to improve?
Well, the first thing I would say is read frequently and write frequently. Reading is just so beneficial to your writing life because what you're doing is you're seeing writing modeled for you. And read widely, look at a newspaper, read a book, look at a magazine. You have so much access to various styles of writing, and seeing it modeled is really important. And then, of course, writing frequently, but paying attention to what we're writing. We write, some people argue more than ever. We're expressing ourselves on Facebook, on Twitter. We're writing emails, and we tend not to pay attention to how we're crafting an email, how we're putting it together. And I think by really focusing on that act and doing it frequently, you're going to improve. And then in practical terms, for people who are worried about grammar and mechanics, there's a great app called Grammarly that you can get a plugin for Chrome, for Firefox. And what it will do is actually kind of like spell checks have done in the past, but it will catch errors in your writing and give suggestions and then give explanations as to why something is popping up as incorrect. The other thing I really like about it is that Grammarly will address your tone. And so maybe you're writing an email to a professor and you're not sure about your tone, if it's coming across maybe formally enough. And Grammarly will pick up on that, and it'll have a little emoji with glasses on and say, "Oh, this is a very professional, tone in your email." And so I think that's a really great tool for writers who want to improve and are apprehensive about how they're coming across in their writing.
I love it. So we got to turn off all of our notifications and not get distracted. We've got to get Grammarly. Those are two great suggestions. And you mentioned too that we are writing all the time. We're tweeting and we're doing Facebook and all of these other social media. So why is it so important that we come back to longer communication and learn how to write correspondence? Why in the world of 122 character tweets is that an important skill?
Honestly, those are those are expressive ways that we can communicate, right? We get on Facebook, we get on Twitter, and we express what's happened to us, our opinion about something. But most of us are having to write longer pieces, even if it's just an email or a report to our boss, especially right now when we're not sitting in meetings, or maybe you are through Zoom, but you still have to create an agenda and an outline and remain organized. But this long form writing is really, it's how we're entertained. People are watching all sorts of television shows and they're loving the content, and that comes from good writing. This doesn't just happen. And so, that's one thing. And then especially as well right now, information, public health is so important with what we're going through, and being able to communicate clearly and accurately is crucial in a period like right now. And then, I see a lot of people talk about things like Humans of New York. Many people have discovered this account either on Instagram or Facebook. They also have a book, and it's communicating human lived experiences. It connects us to one another, and being able to tell our stories. Everyone has a voice, but being able to tell our stories is how we live, how we connect to one another. There's also another one, the AIDS Memorial Project, where people share family members or friends that they've lost to AIDS, and they tell the stories about how they met one another, how this person lived, how they died, and it's heartbreaking, but it's also keeping that memory alive. It's important for history. A lot of people are journaling right now, and this is how we find out about how other cultures and civilizations have lived, is by what they communicate to us through longer forms of writing. So all of those things are important. We write to entertain, we write to express ourselves, we write to inform, and absolutely we should be paying attention to that, because it is challenging for people when they go from all I ever do is write a sentence or two on Facebook to, okay, now I have to write a cover letter for a job or a report to my boss. And I certainly can sympathize with that. But the more you do it, the easier it gets, really.
And this kind of plays into a question that we're getting online, Jennifer, and that is, do we have consultants and technical for technical writing and science writings that are there at the center?
Absolutely, yes. We have, and actually, if you go on our website or our Facebook page, lamar.edu/writing center is our website. You can click a button that says schedule an appointment now. And when you go to schedule, you'll see a list of all of our consultants, and they each have a brief bio that explains their background. Some of our consultants are more skilled in APA than others, that sort of thing. And so you can really find and hone in on the consultant that you think is going to be most beneficial for you and for your sessions.
Got it. You kind of touched on this, but I want to go and delve into it a little bit more. I find writing to be very cathartic, and I can be one of those who can be very, very angry and go ahead and just write it out and then not send it to anybody. And I know that's a recommendation. Don't send it, but just write it. But I feel better because I've just gotten it out. I mean, would you say that writing, especially during a time like this pandemic, is a cathartic practice?
Absolutely. And one of my colleagues, Dr. Melissa Hudler, she was on sabbatical this past, it might have been about a year ago, and she was working with cancer patients locally on what she calls wellness writing, and how it can be therapeutic. Writing helps us to process our experiences and our emotions. And yes, absolutely, it can be helpful for us to document, not for anyone else per se, but for ourselves to really work through what we're feeling. And everyone is going to respond to major life events differently. Whether it be recently, we've had Hurricane Harvey and people have lost everything, or maybe it's a major health event. Maybe it's being quarantined at home and you're frustrated you need a way to express that's not outward, right? That's not going to harm anyone else, but by writing about it and sort of keeping track, it can absolutely help you to process and say, okay, today was a bad day, but here's what I did differently today. Or maybe today was a really good day, and this is why I think that was. So yeah, I mean, I think we see journals and diaries as something that people have done in the past. That, oh, we don't do that anymore. We have all of these other outlets where we can express ourselves and share things. But it can be really good to do that just for yourself, as well.
And kind of along those lines, if you're writing for personal reasons and you want to write and you want to do it for therapy, I mean, how can you get inspired? What inspires you? Let's talk about that. And how can others be inspired?
To be honest, it really depends on what your goals are. Writing is or can be so varied, and it absolutely depends on what your goals are. If you're a creative writer, then you might use prompts, and there are lots and lots of websites out there that will provide even daily prompts. And so a lot of writers will set aside a certain point in their day, and they will just write anything that comes into their head, or they'll use a prompt and work off of that. And that can certainly be helpful to people. I know others who keep notepads next to their bed because they have their best ideas in the middle of the night or first thing in the morning, and they want to write that down. This is true of anyone creative, that we want to jot those things down before they disappear, right? Even for some people, it's dreams. But in terms of other types of writing, if it's more professional communication, the inspiration there is, oh, this is my job and I have to do this, right? And so I think acknowledging that different situations require different sort of stimulus, is important as well, because yeah, you can't wait for inspiration to hit, right? We talk about this a lot with students that, you're not going to get inspiration for that history book review, and so again, that's where sitting down and working through the process is necessary, because if you're always waiting for something to inspire you, you may never get that work done, So, and I think that's a challenge. I think there are people who want to write and who don't because they're waiting for that to sort of appear. And more often than not, it's not going to,
It's just not going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, it's doing the work and writing. That's how you really write. Is you sit down and write, even if it's, even if nothing is coming forth, write about that. Write about your frustration with that. Because, yeah, it's better than not having anything on the page. A lot of writers, like I said, they'll sit down every day and they'll write, and they'll come back to it the next day and they'll say, oh, this is absolute garbage. But that's okay. It's, again, part of that process.
That's inspiring right there. Just that whatever you write, you don't have to keep. You can just, move on and do something different. But are there some online resources?
Draft is going to be good.
Right. Yeah, and I think there's a fine line too between knowing when it's done, and you've got to let it go at some point, right? You've just got to let it go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are there some online resources to help you? You said there are some that'll send you, a kind of an inspiration every day. Are there some resources like that?
I'll have to look and see. I don't personally use any. I know a lot of people do. There are also big events. There's one called NaNoWriMo, which is the month of November is Novel Writing Month. And you can join with a lot of other people who are attempting to do the same thing. And you set yourself goals, and that's a really, really good event for people who need that accountability. And also, speaking of accountability, find a writing group. If you're really serious, find a writing group. It's important to, if that's something that you struggle with, finding the time, set aside that time. If you don't plan for it, it's kind of like inspiration. It's not going to magically appear. Most of us don't find ourselves with an extra couple of hours each day. So if it is something that's important to you, schedule it. Just like anything that you want to do more of, build it into your schedule.
Excellent idea. Is it easier to pretend that you're writing to someone instead of just sitting down and writing?
I mean, audience is really important when you're
Yeah.
when you're considering your writing. Just like you should know what your goal is. Why are you writing? So I do think it can be, but in terms of I'm writing this, I don't know if you're writing a short story or a poem. I don't know how helpful that would be because I think if you're constantly considering what someone else is going to think about what you're writing or how they're going to respond to it, that in itself can be stymieing. It might provide too much inhibition for you to sit and think about that. But of course, if we're talking about professional communication, you absolutely should be thinking about who you're writing to.
Right.
And that again, that's why writing is so challenging because depending on the scenario, depending on whether it is something that someone else is going to see and who that someone else is, it's difficult, and that's why I say doing more of it and paying attention to it when you're doing it is what's going to help you in the long run.
I've heard people say, "Oh, but I'm not good at grammar, or I'm not a good speller," and so they just don't write. It's like someone who says, "Oh, I don't do math,"
right?
And so they just decide in their minds that part of their lives is over.
Yeah.
And what do you say to those folks? "Oh, I can't spell, so I don't write."
I think just like what you mentioned with math, people think I'm either innately good at this or I'm not. And I don't believe that. Writing is a skill. It's something that we learn. And we have various backgrounds in writing. And some of us have stronger backgrounds than others. But when it comes to grammar and mechanics and those sorts of things, first of all, you can learn to follow the conventions of those of writing, right? But also, if you're concerned about you want to write something creatively and you think, oh, this I can't do that because of A, B, or C. That's what good editors are for. I've edited books in the past, and don't let that be the thing that stops you. There are so many tools available to us now. And again, if you're seriously wanting to write creatively, that is what an editor is. So, yes, some of us are really challenged by putting together sentences that are clear and concise. I teach technical and professional communication. I understand this, but it doesn't mean that you don't have something worth saying, and it doesn't mean that you can't communicate. It's just about learning to do it more and better, and confidence goes a long way when it comes to that.
So an editor is going to take care of effect and effect and all of the there, and all of those things.
Absolutely. And if you're a student, that's what the Writing Center is for.
That's right.
I mean, we have students who come in and they know that, oh man, I really, really struggle with run-on sentences. Okay, let's go through this paper together. Let's find some run-on sentences and let's correct them together, And that's why I frequently say this when I visit classes, that we're not an editing service. We want to help you learn how to improve your own writing. If you just email your paper to us and we fix it and send it back to you, that's not a process that you're involved in. We want you involved in that process. It's your work, not ours. And so we want you to retain ownership of it and be confident that you can make the changes that you need to be understood.
Perfect. We're getting some kudos online. One of our listeners says, I think it's amazing that LU has a writing center to guide students through the writing process. It can be so overwhelming and challenging. What a great resource for students. So give us some, it's a really, really nice acknowledgement. Talk to us about some final tips and tricks to writing. What are some really good recommendations?
Well, first, I'll go ahead and publicize that we do a Tuesday tip series that we've started since we've been in quarantine. And so you can look back on our Facebook page for our Tuesday tips. Um, but I would say that one of them that we posted recently was about focusing on the real subject of the sentence. A lot of times we as writers get really bogged down in complicated ideas and we're not sure how to communicate what we want to. And so the first thing I say is, what is the actual subject of your sentence? What's the thing that you want to talk about? And put that at the start of your sentence. We often overcomplicate our writing, and it's partially because if you have read a lot of textbooks or research articles, some of these things are very convoluted, and we think, oh, our writing should be this. But clear writing, nothing beats clear writing. And so start with the real subject. And I think that helps us to maintain a stronger communication with people. So that's one. I'm trying to think of some other things, but like I said, using outside apps can help as well. But in terms of the writing process, and see, this is also why it's difficult because yes, we can talk about grammar and mechanics. That's one thing, but also in terms of organization, how we even an email. How do we want to get this across? Well, what do you want from this person? Who are we writing to? What do you want from them? When do you need this information by? Keeping in mind those sorts of questions as you're writing, it helps you to come across clear, and it helps you to get what you want and need from the other person. But that's an email. It's professional communication. You want to get to the point, in professional communication. If we're writing essays, organization, absolutely. I know that students say, "Oh, I just sit down and I write my essay," and okay, great. I'm glad that works for you. But sitting down and spending some time organizing our thoughts and seeing how we might want to further develop those ideas helps us to put together a stronger essay. And so spending that time organizing, I know some people hate outlines, and I think it's because they think, oh, I have to do this Roman numeral series and it's very formal. It does not have to be very formal, even just jotting down some ideas before you get started can help you to come across as more organized and clear when you're trying to communicate your ideas. So yeah, those are just
So focus on the subject, be concise,
yes,
and take some time to outline and be organized.
absolutely.
That's great. Okay, we're going to wrap up, Jennifer. But why don't you give us a few books that you would recommend? Summer's coming along. We might need some summer books. A book list from Jennifer Ravey.
So let me think of some top reads from the last few years. So when it comes to nonfiction, I'm a big fan of the writer Candace Millard, and it's Millard, and she wrote a book that I just love. It's called Destiny of the Republic, and I know a lot of people are maybe dislike nonfiction. I love narrative nonfiction. It's fascinating to me that people can take these very small snippets of history and just make them so fascinating. But Candace Millard, I actually saw at the Texas Book Festival in Austin a number of years ago. And she spoke about this book in such a way that my mom was with me, and we both said, okay, we have to read this book. And the full title is Destiny of the Republic, A Tale of Madness, Medicine, and the Murder of a President. And it's about the life and assassination of President James Garfield. And the story that she told that made me just have to read this book was that when Garfield was assassinated, he lived for, I think it was several months after the attempt on his life. And he was just in horrible pain the entire time. And he had one last wish, and that was to see the sea before he died. And so they actually built railroad tracks from the front steps of the White House all the way to the ocean. And someone had donated their house for him to go and stay in while he was there. So they padded this train car for him so that he wouldn't experience extra pain. And the last like 200 feet, the rail car had too much of an incline to go on, and people had lined the tracks all the way to pay their respects. And so a group of people gathered together and pushed that rail car the rest of the way so that he could make it to that spot. And honestly, it was just so touching. And I said, okay, yes, I have to read this book. So
Great story.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a really fantastic story, and she's written several books that are equally good, and so I would definitely recommend that. Let's see, the National Book Award winner from I think it was the year before last is Less Less by Andrew. Oh gosh, I'm going to totally forget because I just said Garfield.
Yeah.
And I'm terrible with names. Andrew Sean Greer, Greer, was a really, really wonderful book. Controversial because not everyone agreed that it should have won the National Book Award, but I thought it was fantastic. And then a book that actually originated as an Instagram challenge is by a writer named Layla Saad, and it's called Me and White Supremacy. And it talks specifically to white women about how we can acknowledge that we are a product of a society that sees color and treats people of color very differently. And it's a workbook that you work through, and it's honestly life changing. And I feel like more people should read it. So there are lots and lots of great books out there. I'm on Goodreads, so if anybody wants to join me there, and also Review of Texas Books should be coming out within the next month, and that is a Lamar publication that reviews books by and for Texans. And so we focus on publishers that are in Texas, authors that are in Texas, and books that are set in Texas. And so we have some excellent books that we'll be reviewing in that as well. And that is just an online subscription, and it's Review of Texas Books. And we have a website through Lamar as well, and that's lamar.edu/txreview. And so I really encourage you. We'll have some good quarantine reads, some good summer reads, and it's great if you're looking for book recommendations.
Well, that is awesome. I have written all those down on my piece of paper here. So I'm excited to have some good summer reads. So Jennifer, we're going to wrap up, but how can a student get in touch with you and come to the Writing Center? Or I guess at this point, just get in touch with you.
So we just closed for the semester on Tuesday, but we will reopen on June 1st, online only. And so you can visit us on our website, lamar.edu/writing center, on our Facebook page, or you can call us at 409-880-8571 or email us at uwc@lamar.edu. And so, as I said, we'll reopen on June 1st, and we can't wait to continue working with students.
That's great. Thank you so much for your time and all of your insight. And excited to have you on the Lamar University campus. What a great resource.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Appreciate it. I want to remind the community, too, that we have graduation, and we'll have a video online on our Facebook as well as YouTube and on our website today of all of our, most of our graduates with yard signs throughout the campus. And so we're going to show that tour of our graduates this afternoon or this evening at 7 p.m. And then tomorrow, graduation is at 7. We want everybody to put their red on, celebrate our graduates, and they're just outstanding individuals, and we're excited and thrilled and proud of our graduates. Thanks for listening to Cardcast and being with us today. We'll be back next week and hope you join us. I'm Shelley Vitanza, the Director of Public Affairs at Lamar University, the pride of Southeast Texas.
In trying times, I'm here for my community.
I will reach my students over any distance.
I'm committed to delivering truth.
Keeping families fed is my purpose.
Taking care of people is my passion.
At Lamar University, I was given the skills I need to provide essential services.
No matter where I am.
I'm still here, helping those in need.
And even though we can't always be face to face,
It's because of what I learned at Lamar University that I can be here for you.
Our moment is here.
Our moment is now.
Make the most of it at Lamar University.